We made it back to Asakusabashi, and it's still early in the day, so we got plenty of time to do other things. I first wanted to show you this little koban. This is right near our hotel in Asakusabashi. Again, this is a little police substation. Tiny little buildings would do what they need to do, and as you can see, some of the policemen working out of the station are bicycle police. There really aren't a lot of cars in Tokyo. It's surprising. One thing I forgot to point out previously is that in any of these pictures where you see large groups of bicycles, the one thing I want you to notice about them is that they don't have bike locks. And that's very common. I've seen groups of what I would estimate to be about 200 bicycles and not a single lock among them. People just don't steal bikes. It's kind of an amazing thing. Well, this unusual photo is going to require some explanation. It's probably not what it looks like. This is a little place called Maid Dreamin'. It's a maid cafe. It's actually a chain of maid cafes. And what these are is they're actually family entertainment. People would think of that as maybe something perverted. But no, mom and dad and the kids go to these places for the enjoyment of it. The food is kind of cheesy, kind of cheap stuff, but that's okay because it's really all about the entertainment. So you have these young girls, and when I say young girls, I'm not talking about minors. These are grown women. They just happen to be very small of stature, and they dress like maids, and they sing, they dance, they come over and play games with you, they decorate your food, just whatever. And then in the end, whoever your server is, you get your picture taken with them. I'd like to have taken a little more normal picture, but they literally encourage you to do something silly looking like this. So that's what a maid cafe has become. Now, back when they started, like over 20 years ago, they had a very different meaning back in those days. There's only one like that still remaining of the original style. Most of them are like this one here. But it was fun. All of the maid cafes are all in Akihabara, which is this neighborhood, as I pointed out before, that's all about electronics. It's all about anime. Even all the large J-pop groups that are really famous, like AKB48, this is their home as well. And so this is kind of like the Times Square of Tokyo. This is where most of your Westerners congregate. This is where people stay out and party for hours on end. So, nice place to visit. Wouldn't want to stay there. Now, this particular bridge is very prominent. This is the railroad we just got off of when we arrived in Akihabara. And this bridge is very prominent in a very famous anime series, which is known as Steins Gate. And Steins Gate takes place in Akihabara. That's the main location anyway. And so this bridge appears all throughout the entire series. Here are a couple still shots from Steins Gate, just so that you can actually see the bridge. Not exactly the greatest vantage point in this one, but you can tell it is the same bridge. And then there it is from a little bit distance up the road. So again, prominent throughout the entire series. Very cool to actually see it in person. This is Coco Curry House. It's literally right next door to the place where we got our first authentic ramen, right there across from Akihabara Station. So my son is having sausages in a big pool of Indian curry, not Japanese curry, and there's a huge difference, with some rice, and it looks like he's got some iced tea and iced coffee. I had unsweet iced tea, and deep fried pork cutlet with mine. And as you can see, we did manage to get a fork. Very nice. This two-story escalator in Akihabara Station is one of the more unique things I've ever seen. And it's very difficult to tell from this still photo, but you get onto a step and you just remain on it, and it goes down 2 stories. So it will take you down halfway, and you can kind of see where that is. There's a ledge overhanging it there. When it gets down to there, it levels off, and you're just standing on a flat surface. And then when it gets out to the edge of that, it starts going down again. So you're going down 2 flights of stairs with a landing in between, and you never have to get off the step that you stepped onto. Never seen anyone quite like that before. Very interesting. Again, we were too excited to go right to sleep, so we decided to go out around 1 a.m. and see if we could find a bar, maybe have a beer or something. And we ran across this interesting little Shinto shrine, just attached to a building in the middle of nowhere in particular. As you can see, there are a few people out walking the streets that time of night. It's actually more prominent than you may think. Now, in this case, these are adults. Again, I won't photograph young girls in a foreign country. It's not a good idea. But we saw literally girls that I would guess being maybe 14, 15 years old, and at 1 o'clock, 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, they're out walking by themselves down alleyways, and they do so without fear. Again, as I pointed out before, here's some drink machines. You can even see a little recycling bin next to the one in the foreground there. But these are isolated. They're down these little tiny alleys. There's nobody around. Be a perfect opportunity to break into one of those and get drinks and money, and it just doesn't happen. I've seen drink machines out in front of a grocery store in the United States, and after hours, even though it's on a main drag, somebody goes up and breaks into them and destroys the machine and takes the money. It just doesn't happen there. And also further down the aisle here, or the alley, you can see there's a lot of bicycles here. None of them chained. And that was my observation everywhere I went. I can't say I actually saw a bike lock anywhere in the country of Japan. Aha, this place is nearly unmarked, but the little slit-like windows there on the left look a little promising. This could be what we've been looking for. I walked over to this little slit windows and took a look inside, and sure enough, there's a nice little bar. It's entered through the big sliding door on the front there. So this is the Danro bar. It's just down an alley in Asakusabashi. So we went in to have us a beer or two. The bartender and the patrons in Danro bar were very welcoming. First thing they did was, I guess they wanted to accommodate us, so they switched over the television to American baseball. Now, as you may know, they have their own major leagues in Japan. Some of them even come over here and end up playing in our major leagues. So they were more than happy to watch some American baseball. And so we had some Asahi beer, and I believe we also had a Kirin beer. And tried to talk with the bartender as best we could. In some cases, we would even use a translator. And when we were done, as usual, he followed us outside into the alley and bowed to us many times and thanked us for selecting his bar when there were so many others in the neighborhood that we could have gone to. Now here, we're back in Asakusabashi again, and I wanted to point out this little bridge over the road here connects the entryway to the rail station to the actual platform on the left. As you can see down the left-hand side, this huge concrete structure, that's actually looking along the railway. And one of the things they do, because again they have very little occupiable land and farmable land, is they actually build businesses under the railroad. They don't waste that space like we would do here, where there would just be a big opening. It's nice of them to put the railroad up high, but it's still a lot of wasted space. So right here on the right, now you can see the railroads on the right. You can see all kinds of businesses. See all along there are businesses built back under the railway so that you're not wasting space. Restaurants, all kinds of really nice little shops. Beautiful. One thing most tourists don't realize until they actually go to Tokyo is that it does have a sort of a Venice, Italy element. The city of Tokyo is full of these man-made canals, a whole system of them. And one of the things you can do for fun is get on these little canal boats and take tours, and they will take you all around the city. I don't feel you can see a lot of stuff from there because you're kind of down below street level, but they're interesting nonetheless. We never took one. We were more about exploring than relaxing, but they're neat to see. Once we crossed the bridge over the canal where you saw the canal boats, we left Asakusabashi and went into a neighborhood known as Higashihini Honbashi. And this is their little koban, their little police substation in that particular town, which we will be walking now for about half an hour. From that Higashikanda neighborhood, we're able to get our first view of the Tokyo Skytree. That's that big tower you can see in the background. It's the first time we've been positioned with so many buildings where we can actually see it. It is the second tallest structure in the world behind that big building they built in the Middle East recently. And it is the tallest tower in the world, also the tallest structure in Japan. So it is called the Tokyo Skytree, 2,080 feet tall. And if you want to put that into perspective, that is almost exactly double the height of the Eiffel Tower in Paris. These are just some more street scenes from Higashi Nihonbashi, and we're kind of working our way now back towards the bridge to go back into Asakusabashi. But definitely worthwhile walking this little neighborhood. It's a very beautiful little place. Now, this particular place right here, this little wooden structure on the left is kind of hanging on the edge of a cliff. It's hard to say here, but there is the canal below it. So there's the little wooden business, and as you can see, it's along a rail there. But before you get to the buildings behind it, it drops down into a canal. And not the same one, well, it could even be the same canal we crossed before, but not at the same crossing point. So you could see there are a different group of boats down in this particular area of the canal. So we're getting ready then to go back over the canal at the Asakusabashi. First, one last Shinto shrine, just kind of on a street corner. One of the reasons they are very quiet in public, because anyone at any point can be worshiping on one of these little shrines, and you don't want to disturb that, and they respect each other. And finally we come to the Yanagibashi Bridge, and this is where we will cross over the canal and go back into Asakusabashi. After a nice little morning walk and a chance to see something fresh, something different. Every neighborhood of Tokyo has its own unique character. They're all very, very different. It's almost like going to multiple countries. Returning to the Asakusabashi side, we encountered this interesting Toribian Izakaya restaurant and sake bar, and immediately this strikes a little interest. I'd love to hear one of the locals explain this. So on this sign you see a Star of David. I don't know if that has another meaning in Japan or not, but then also on the same sign you see a pig. Now generally the Star of David represents Judaism, and pork is a dietary no-no. So I'd love to get one of the locals to be able to explain to me the purpose of that. And again, in Asakusabashi, we encountered this white building on the corner. This is the Japan Stationary Museum and Shrine. So this museum actually even has its own little shrine that's affiliated with it. Right in front of you there, you can actually see the railroad as well, which is the one that goes over to Akihabara. So we were just walking this particular morning, just killing some time because things don't open until a little later. They don't open everything like bright and early the way they do in the United States. And we wanted to go see a very famous Buddhist temple complex known as Sensoji, which is in Asakusa, not Asakusabashi, but Asakusa, which is just a couple of stops up the railroad. So now we're getting on a different railroad coming out of Asakusabashi station, but we're going to be running north-south rather than east-west as we have been. And so we're going to head up to the Sensoji Temple in Asakusa, and that'll be the subject for the next segment.